Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 51 of the World Wonders podcast. I'm Ryan, the captain of this podcast ship. My co-host Amanda is still off frolicking about in Bali. So if you've been feeling like this podcast is just extra manly and the testosterone is just overwhelming lately, fear not, she'll be back next week and I'll have an episode recapping all of her fun adventures teaching yoga in Bali. This week on the podcast, I was lucky enough to be joined by Hunter Stanford. And it's a really good interview. Hunter's a hilarious guy with lots of good stories. So I think you're really going to enjoy it. We talk about his experience traveling from Mexico to Colombia. Now he's living in Bogota, Colombia, while working his job from the States remotely. So we talk a bit about lifestyle arbitrage, learning Spanish, Spanish schools. There's a knife incident that gets brought up. And the way I got in contact with Hunter was he is actually a friend of a friend, my friend Fife, who became Hunter's friend Fife when they met at Spanish school down in Guatemala. So you'll hear Fife a couple times throughout the podcast, and that's where that comes from. Hunter has an awesome blog at hunterstanford.com where you can read about all of his adventures. He had traveled around North America doing farming before this trip down to Central and South America. So he's got lots of good materials on there, lots of good photos. And it's a really cool website, which he actually made entirely himself. So if you're looking for anyone to do web design, definitely check out hunterstanford.com. Anyways, let's get on to the interview. But first, I need to mention something because I feel a little bit embarrassed. This podcast probably starts with the thing I've been most embarrassed about saying in the entire 51 episodes of podcasting. I tried to make a joke because you can't see us, obviously. It's a podcast. If you can see us, let us know there's something going wrong with your iPhone. But anyways, I was like, oh, what are you wearing, Hunter? Making a joke about how no one can actually see. It just sounds really creepy, though. I just felt like I had to say something about that before you actually hear the joke. And you're like, what's wrong with this guy? So anyways, if you enjoy the interview, let us know. If you don't enjoy the interview, I don't know what's wrong with you. This is a great interview. And if you have any questions about Central America, Spanish school, working abroad, lifestyle arbitrage, knife incidents in Bogota, whatever you want, like what day is Christmas in Russia, any questions, we'll answer them all on Facebook, Twitter, at our website, theworldwanderers.com. Enjoy the show. All right. Thanks for joining me on the podcast, Hunter.
Hello, Hunter Stanford here. Waving, but it's audio. Okay.
Yeah, you can't see him when you're listening.
No,
to
I
the
know.
podcast
I kind of just kind of wanted to do that.
Yeah. What are you wearing today, Hunter?
I have a tank top on, even though it's kind of cold. Some pants. I'm in Bogota, and Bogotanians complain. Bogotanians, I kind of just made that up. They complain that they have really bad weather here, but I think it's between like 50 and I'm going to speak Fahrenheit. Well, this is for all my States listeners out there. It's between like 50 and 70 every day, which is Celsius. Are you good at converting that? I have no idea what that would be in Celsius.
Minus 30 and divided by 2. So what number did you say? 50?
So 50, 30, so 10 degrees to like 17 degrees.
That's actually pretty chilly. Like, that's colder than I would have imagined it being.
Well, you can never see your breath, though, to give you an idea of it. Never gets cold enough to see your breath at night. That gives me a better understanding more so than numbers. I don't know if it does the same for you.
I'm pretty good with numbers, but yeah, it's considerably warmer than, because you're just kind of.
Well, there just aren't any extremes here. You know, it stays between that. It rains for like an hour. So I think the weather's great here. You know, in Florida, it gets like really hot, pretty cold, like horrible thunderstorms from where you are. There's just no extreme weather here, so it's kind of funny to me that people like to complain about the weather here. Yeah. It's really nice all the time.
But that's kind of like something people do everywhere, right? Like, I know here it's bad because in Alberta, it's like the craziest weather. You'll get like 17 one day and it'll be like negative 10 the next day, Celsius.
Okay.
And then, people complain about how shitty the weather is. But then when you meet people from Alberta who are traveling, they're like, oh yeah, it gets like negative 30. And like everyone's so proud of how cold it gets here.
Right, like bragging about it. Like it goes from like bitching to bragging kind of thing.
Yeah, or when it's like negative 10, people are like, oh, it sucks, it's so cold. And then it gets to like plus 15 and they're like, oh, the snow's melting, it sucks, it's slushy.
I guess people do really like to bitch about the weather, but even in places where it's really, really nice. And as I can say, as I can say, I've heard a lot here.
Yeah. So you're living in Bogota for a while, but you're kind of on, like, you're approaching a year traveling now? Or how long have you been on the road for?
No. So for 2013 until July, I had a job at a magazine in DC. Before that, I did about a year of traveling. And then I came home to Tampa, Florida, where I'm from. And then in August, I flew to Mexico City. So I've been on the Latin American trip since August 17th. So it was actually September, October, November, December, January, February,
like 10
April.
months, right?
No, it's officially 7. I had to do it on my fingers.
Oh, really?
So don't feel bad. You got it wrong. I had to do it on my fingers. So I've been gone 7 months last week. So really not even that long. And it doesn't, I don't know. It feels about that long as well, if that makes sense. Sometimes, you're like gone for just a minute and it's been a year but yeah, I left for Mexico City 7 months ago.
Yes. So you started, we'll talk about living in Bogota like towards the end, but
sure, whatever.
Like, what was when you were thinking about going traveling, was that something you'd been thinking about for a long time, or something that's been on your mind like since you graduated university, or just kind of like a snap decision, like I need to get out of here?
Well, no, I think the snap decision that I need to get out of here was when I left Austin and I moved to a farm in New Mexico. And then I volunteered around farms for about a year. And in fact, that's the only time I've been to Canada. I went to Victoria Island, which was gorgeous.
Okay.
And spent some time in Victoria, which is my favorite city in North America, and loved it there, dude. Canadians those are the nicest people I ever met, dude. The people,
also, just a ton of old people there, so everyone's like very nice, right?
Oh my gosh, it was like a fantasy land, man. I loved Canada and Victoria. But that's when I felt the need to get out. I was like doing a job I didn't like in Austin, which I technically still do, but in a different capacity, so it's not as unenjoyable. And then I traveled for a year, and then I got a little restless again, and I got a job in journalism, which is my field, and then didn't like that, so stopped doing that as well, and then got back out on the road. So it was more like a decision I'd already made, but made again to just get out again. I'm a bit of a late career bloomer, so I think I use traveling as like an excuse to push it off a little longer, even though I really like traveling, but it helps to kind of just get out of that, like, especially in the United States, probably the same as Canada, but just like you're 25, like, what are you doing? Like, you need to be doing something cool. When you went to college, like, I like, my job's not really a career job. It's just kind of a job, but right now I'm really happy with it because I'm pretty happy where I am and make good, okay money for the first time in my life. So I don't know. I don't really care about the career right now, and I think if I was in the United States, it'd be harder to not care about that.
Yeah, that's definitely because I did the same thing, like go to university, finish university, go traveling for 6 months, which is like a nice not think about actually getting a real job, but then like, move back to Calgary, like hop into a kind of career oriented job and just like, really not enjoyable at all. And then so we went traveling again to South America for 6 months, and coming back after that, it was like, I just don't even want to continue doing that like career thing. The career that I thought I wanted, which was like, I had a business degree, so I was like, I'm gonna, wear a suit and climb the ladder and do that kind of stuff.
What did you do when you came back from the first trip?
So I was working in the accounting department of a commercial flooring company.
So super corporate, but so paying well, I'm sure.
It paid pretty well, especially like considering, it was fairly like easy, no real, wasn't really pushing myself super hard.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. So then we were thinking about like traveling the second time. I knew that like I didn't want to go back to the same situation because it'd be so hard to try to live how I want to live if I'm back in the exact same situation with the same social circle. Because like when you're in that environment, like living in Calgary, for example, and everyone is just kind of working in a company, trying to get a promotion, it's really hard. It's a lot harder to just be okay not doing that.
Yeah, you kind of get caught up in that energy, right?
Yeah, so I can definitely identify with what you're saying about like needing to get out, because even like we're living in Banff, which is kind of like a tourist transient town, but occasionally
outside of Alberta.
It's like right on the Alberta BC border, so like right in
Okay.
the Rocky Mountains. Calgary's kind of like situated similar to where like Denver is in the States,
In conjunction to what though?
in
Like
conjunction
in the middle.
to the Rockies. So it's like just off
Oh,
the side of the Rockies, and then Banff is like right in the mountains, about
like the
an hour.
foothill mountains kind of thing, or like into it more than that.
So yeah, Banff is like right into the Rocky Mountains, so just like beautiful skiing and hiking everywhere.
And you live there year round.
Well, we moved here in August after living in South America.
So you got back when I left.
Yeah, pretty
In
much.
August.
We got back like mid-July and then moved out here a couple weeks later.
Okay, and just Bamkiff? What is it called?
Banff?
Oh, just Bamkiff. And you just moved out.
B-A-N-F-F.
Banff. And you just went there just to get a like quieter vibe.
Yeah, it was funny. We were actually planning on living here for like the rest of the summer and then fall, and then going to China to teach English.
Rad.
And then I don't know, just like we signed a year lease because it was really hard to find housing here. Weren't necessarily planning on like staying throughout the whole lease, but just kind of like, yeah, really enjoyed it. So,
Okay, well that's nice you had it, right?
yeah, it's a good experience, and it's like an amazing place to live. So,
That sounds very different from everything that I know. Living in Florida and Texas for my entire life. Like South Florida, South Texas.
yeah, I think I've always heard like amazing things about Austin, though.
Austin's cool. I was there for 6 years. I think it's getting too cool now. Like even when I was there, I could see it. And I guess it's just like the weather. Something people love to complain about there. Like there's a phrase in Austin, welcome to Austin, but don't move here. Or like, welcome to Austin, now get out. It's something like that where like people who live in there really don't like the rate that the city's growing. It's just like a cool place to live, and it's not New York or Chicago. So I don't think I'd go back there. I've heard some rent prices in areas that I used to pay, and it's like doubled. Things are very... So, I mean, it's a great city. Like, a little river goes through the city, even though they call it a lake. Yeah, tons of bike riding. Like, it gets hot, but it never gets, like, cold. And so I just can't handle the cold. I can handle whatever heat, but just, like, if it gets too cold, I don't know. DC was, like, I was there for 8 months through a winter, and that's as cold as I'd ever want to be, and it was, like, 4 snow days. Like, nothing, like something you, like, look down upon,
Yeah.
as a Canadian.
Yeah, although it's been like extremely nice here all winter, but so you were your first stop was Mexico City.
Yeah, DF. They call it District Federal, so DF in Spanish. That's just the letters, D and F. So if you say DF, pretty much all over Latin. So far, I'll get much farther than Mexico City than I am now, but so far, almost everyone I've talked to, Latin American natives, they know what I mean when I say DF. I mean Mexico City, and they know that. So it's it's the biggest city in Latin America by a huge margin. I'm pretty sure it's the biggest. I'm pretty sure it's the biggest city in the Western Hemisphere. I think.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
I can't think of any city that's bigger. It's got 24 million people, so it's a huge city with a huge subway line. 35 cents American to get on each way. So it's like puts New York and DC to shame as far as their transit, like supporting the transit system goes. It's like $3.75 to get on in DC. Yeah, I started in Mexico City, and I just kind of picked it. I don't know. I really wanted to go back to Austin because I hadn't been there for about a year and a half, and then take a bus down and walk across the border, and then do all of Latin America on the ground. So far, I haven't taken any planes. But I think I read enough stuff about border towns in Mexico that I didn't do it. But now I think I would do it. Like if I was leaving right now with what I know, I would just go do it. Like I know that those reports... I can speak some Spanish now. But when I was first doing that, I was like, I'm already kind of scared to be going, and I didn't want to throw that, like a border town, into the mix. So anyway, I found crazy cheap tickets to Mexico City, so I just kind of, for no reason, only that small reason, that became the place to start, just because Mexico City,
It seems like a good place to start a trip. And like I was just looking, I'm thinking about like somewhat replicating your trip, at least starting in Mexico City and going to Central America. But you can fly from Calgary to Mexico City right now for it's like $260 or something.
Are you ready for this? Tampa to Mexico City, $62 one way.
Man,
But listen to this. The reason it was so cheap is I was willing to accept all these layovers because, I mean, I'm going on a indefinite trip to Latin America. I don't care if give me all the layovers you want. So I go Tampa, Atlanta, all the way over to El Paso, all the way down to Mexico City. So like this huge square, because Mexico City's south of Tampa as far as latitude goes. So I went way north, way west, and came all the way back. Direct was probably twice as much, but I was like, I wasn't checking a bag. I had everything with me, so I just did it. I'm proud to be that cheap sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, if you're starting a trip, it doesn't really matter. Although when it's the difference between like $60 and $120, that's a pretty...
I don't, maybe it was only that much. Maybe it was more. I remember being like really psyched about the number and being like, okay, I'll go through 4 planes to get there. But yeah, I did all couch surfing. Mexico City was cool because it's a big enough city where couch surfing is really popular. Like Bogota. Do you know what couch surfing is?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. If people listening don't, it's a website you can go on, and people are hosts, and they offer up their couch, and you come stay for free usually, always really. And anyway, I did 5 weeks and 6 hosts, and I just strung them all together, and I had a really good time in Mexico City.
So
staying
you were
with only
in
people.
Mexico City for 6 weeks?
6 weeks. Let's see. Yeah, and I went straight from there to Spanish school, and that's where I met Fife. And yeah, I was there for five or 6 weeks, over a month, and did all couch surfing, like 5 or 6 hosts. And the first host was nice enough to come meet me at the airport, which was like super, super nice of him. It wasn't really, it's just a subway ride down. It's not, I think in other cities, like going to the airport is super gross. You got to park your car and walk and blah. But it was really nice of him to come because I was like kind of scared of traveling at that. I was just psyched out, you know, but I knew I was going to still do it. I knew everything was going to be fine, but I was really psyched out before I went. So it was nice that he came and met me at the airport.
Yeah, and so before we started recording, we were talking a bit about reading reports on a country and that kind of like building up some anxiety. So you were like a little bit sketched out about going into Mexico City, like
really. I just had too much free time, and like so, I thought it would take a while. Like so, I put together I put together that travel blog that you saw. I had an older one. I didn't like the format, so I went and I bought all my stuff and put it all together. But none of that really took all that long. I thought it was going to take like 6 weeks to put all that together. It didn't. But anyway, yeah, I just had too much free time and read. Like I was like, if I read everything I can, I'll know everything there is to know. But I think people love to go online and post when really bad things happen to them. Yeah. It's like a spectacular story. But if you had a badass time somewhere, you might tell your friends about it, but you probably won't go. I don't know. I feel like the post for will I get stabbed in Mexico is way more popular than the post of what can I do? Like 10 top 20 fun things to do in Mexico, or I had a good time in Mexico because like I think people like to read about that and like to talk about that. Thus, it gets pushed like to the front of the internet. Like there's a word I'm looking for, but go ahead.
And even like in conversations too, like you'll hear like, oh, like my friend's daughter's boyfriend was in Mexico and he got robbed, but you don't hear like my friend's daughter's boyfriend was in Mexico. He had a lovely time.
I know, it's like
people like to talk about.
Who cares? Yeah. I don't care about your girlfriend's son, but if you got stabbed, it's like, really? Then I'm going to tell people that my friend's little sister's cousin, you know, like, and like the story spreads like wildfire, you know? And then I'll add like stabbed and taken on $1 million ride, or like, it just gets like added and built. It's like a telephone, the telephone game you play. It just gets kind of built up. Yeah.
But because that's like going, we started our last trip going into Colombia, and I like knew nothing about Colombia at the time, other than like Pablo
terrible
Escobar.
Things that you hear, right?
Yeah, so I go to the airport in Kelowna, BC, which is like a pretty small town, pretty small airport. Like people aren't flying to Bogota very often, and the Air Canada lady looks at my ticket and she's like, "Oh, Kelowna via Toronto to Bogota," and she's like, "Oh, like good luck." That just.
You know not to go there unless it's necessary, right?
Yeah, it's like, why are you going to Bogota?
That's awesome. But I actually did have one problem here, which I'll talk about if you want. But other than the knife incident that I was involved in, I haven't really. I guess it's rough to open with that and then defend how safe the city is. I think the city's pretty safe. I was kind of maybe in the wrong area at the wrong time, but you said you're in this city a little bit as well. I don't think it's. I mean, for being the capital of a country you hear so much about, I don't know. It's not. It's just a regular city like Chicago, big and kind of dumpy.
Yeah, yeah, and then we can like leave people hanging with the knife incident until like a little bit later on in the podcast.
Yeah, and
that's the suspense.
I just got all the stitches taken out. No, I'm just kidding.
So what was it like in Mexico City for 6 weeks? Were you doing any work at all, or just kind of taking in the sights?
No, so I've been doing work. I usually only work on the weekends until this year started. So the whole time I was on the road, I was working the whole time, but I only have work assigned. I get work assigned on Friday morning, and I have until Sunday night to finish it. So that's really good for like, if I'm disciplined and I'm not doing anything for 3 hours before we go out on Friday night, I'll just do some of it right then. And so I've been working the whole time, but usually only for like 6 hours throughout the weekend. So I remember working. I had some problems logging into some websites I needed for the job because I wasn't in the States anymore. That was a little bit stressful at first, but yeah, in Mexico City, the whole time I've been finding some place to hole up for a couple hours every weekend to get this done. And it like about breaks me even, but like slowly still, inevitably, the bank account goes down, but just it softens that blow.
Yeah, I guess if you're not working like enough hours, it's going to be hard. But it's pretty sweet to be able to make an American wage and have like Mexican living expenses or Central
Guatemala.
American.
Like Guatemala was great. Here it's pretty cheap. There's some stuff that's still expensive. Clothes, if you recall, not transportation. Sometimes food. The Guatemala things were really cheap. They use the Quetzal there is the name of their currency. I have some actually. And it's like 8 Quetzal per dollar. Anyway, you get whole. I once paid a night for rent. I mean, a night for sleeping in a nice hostel was like 10 Quetzal, so that's like $1.25 American. It was like a place with a free breakfast. Like really, really cheap. Very nice too.
How did you get into the job where you're able to work remotely?
So this is a job that I've had off and on for 6 years. Since I graduated from college, I moved to Austin, Texas. And I was really into music then, and I played in a band, but I just got a day job. So right now I work at Texas State Low Cost Insurance, which is where I worked then. And I worked in the office, customer service, like the worst for like 2 years. Long time. Like time just slips by sometimes. And then I started working from home because I went back to school for web design. I did that for I did that and some jobs for about 2 years. And so I just asked them, like, hey, I want to go back to school. I had this specific part of my job, which is called underwriting. You like edit apps. It's fairly repetitive, fairly boring, but you could pay me this much per app, not give me benefits anymore, and I could work from home. And I just like presented that to them one day, and it ended up being a good deal for both of us. They approved it, and then blah, blah, blah. Let's fast forward to the future. And so now, because it's from home, I can just travel with this job. So I quit for a little while when I had a magazine gig last year, and then I got it back this last summer. And then, so yeah, wherever there's internet, when we're done right now, actually, I got my work assigned today, and I don't have anything to do this afternoon. So that's how at one point I asked them if I could do it from home just so I could start going to school again. And that was like 3 years ago, maybe? Probably about 3 years ago.
That's just an awesome scenario to get into. And have you read the 4 Hour Work Week?
No, I know what it is. I can envision the cover. The guy's like hammocked up between two palms, right?
Yeah. But Tim Ferriss, who wrote it, talks about like one of the first steps to take is to get yourself out of the office and get your work kind of tied more to what you're doing. Like, so, you can go home and still complete the same amount of work, but if you can do it in like 4 hours, you still get paid the same or something like that. But then, and then the idea of lifestyle arbitrage. So when you can separate where you're making money from where you're living and like move to somewhere like Thailand or Guatemala, and then you can basically increase your real wage by like 4 times if you cut the cost of living.
Yeah, which will naturally happen just due to the standards of living there,
Yeah. So it's like, that's something I've really thought about, like wanting to get into at some point. You're trying to find a way to separate where I make money from where I live. But.
Yeah. The grass is always greener though, dude, because my situation sounds very badass, and it is, but the job is boring. I miss especially traveling before here, I just miss my friends. Like at hostels, you sometimes make good friends. I made a couple good friends at hostels, but 99% of the time you make these like fake one night friends. Not fake. Everyone likes each other. But it's just like it sounds bad, but you're kind of like at one point, like, what is the point of talking to these people? I'm not going to see them after tomorrow. And so that's when I wanted to get into an apartment and get away from hostels. But I don't know. I think a lot about going back to like Tampa, and like there's a couple career moves I want to try. I'll probably travel for as long as I can, to be honest, until like I get fired from the job, which I don't think it's going to happen, but could, or I get laid off. The grass is always greener. I always like to remind people of that like I get lonely a lot. I don't like this job. I get bored with that. Spanish, which we'll talk about, gets like super demoralizing sometimes, because you just look stupid. So I think a lot. I think it'd be cool to be living with a girl in northern Canada in the Rockies. I'd be down with that right now.
Yeah, that's so good.
Just to remind you,
That's a really good point. And it would be tough to convince yourself to, when you're traveling and everyone else is like really in that like whatever fuck it mode, and you're like, I gotta go do this thing. That'd be harder to do. So let's dive into learning Spanish. So you started. Were you always planning on going to Spanish school in Guatemala, or was that kind of like after being in Mexico City, like I need to up my Spanish game and find a Spanish school?
Yeah, definitely the latter. So I did this Duo. It's spelled Duolingo, but it's like one word, so it's pronounced Duolingo. Okay, if you look it up. It's like a free language app, and they make little games, and there's tons of languages you can choose from. There's like 20. Dutch, Irish, Gaelic, some cool stuff in there. I did the Spanish one for a while, and so I started it in like January 2013, and I did it off and on for 6 months, made some flashcards, watched some movies. And so I go to Mexico City thinking that I have something under my belt. Yeah. But I just found out within the first like 3 hours very quickly that I just didn't know shit. Because there's a difference between like in front of your computer, just you controlling the pace, the same type of voice always talking to you. Like that's all very easy, but it's not. Like that's like light years away from what it's really like. So I pretty much showed up to Latin America with, I would say, nearly zero Spanish, like nearly zero practical Spanish. And so it became apparent pretty quick, because I want to do this, that I should go to school. But I didn't really rush it. I went to Puebla, Mexico after Mexico City, and I did helpexing there, which we can talk about at some point. It's where you like stay with people and do work in exchange for room and board. I've done a lot in Canada, and I'm actually going to do some in Ecuador next month. But I did some of that in Puebla, Mexico. And then there I started looking at schools, and then Chela was where I went next. I kind of just walked around to 5 schools one day. One school was the nicest to me, so that's why I picked them. They just like gave me the time of day, which was what I was looking for. Like websites are always really nice, but like let's go down to the school and see how interested they are in me. And that's how I kind of chose the school.
And that's
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. You just kind of like froze up for a minute. I thought you might have stopped talking, but
I thought the same on your end. Go ahead though.
So me and my girlfriend Amanda did language school in Buenos Aires when we were in South America, but that was like probably 3 months into our trip. So we were like, oh, we really need to commit ourselves to doing something, because we're just doing like one-off lessons, and it's not really happening.
Yeah. Because you're with each other, you just speak English, of course. Yeah. Did you think you would practice Spanish together and then didn't?
Yeah, it'd be like we'd go through a stretch where it's like we're practicing together a lot, and then you just kind of it stops happening, and then it's like been 3 weeks, and you're like, oh, we should start doing that again. And
it's energy, man. It's just like work. It's just straight up work,
Well, that's the thing. I think a lot of people make it seem like work, and that's the key. The only thing you should really be focusing on is making it fun. Like that's the only focus you should really have. And then whatever you miss out on making it fun, it's like, well, you can figure that out later. So like if you
for sure. I just meant like having a conversation with someone can sometimes be like work, because it's just like the mental effort to try and keep up can be like work. You're right. I try all the time. In fact, I only do things that are fun for me now. I try not to worry about it. I don't know. I think 5 years ago I would have like been doing all kinds of stuff that I didn't think was fun, but now I'm almost 30. Like, just chip at it every day and don't do anything that I really don't want to do. You know?
Yeah. And we had like looked on the internet, found a language school that we thought was like seemed legitimate on the internet. But then you have to commit, like we were going to do 2 weeks, so you have to pay a sizable amount of money. It was going with a homestay, so you had to pay like a decent amount up front. And then as we got closer, it was just so hard to find out good information. It turns out the Spanish school we booked through is actually kind of just a service that kind of finds people and then sends them to other Spanish schools. So,
and does that suck, or did that suck?
Well, they were being like really deceptive, and like you kind of sign up and then they're like, oh, there's going to be this other fee and then like this other thing happening. And then
so you didn't know they were like a liaison until you'd already paid money?
Like until the actual day we arrived at the school. They would tell us, we were like, oh, where's the school? And they weren't like, they didn't reply in that email. And then we're like, no, like where, like what's the address of the school? And they give us like an address but no name. And then we show up at the address and it's like, oh, Spanish school. But we had booked through this like GIC Spanish school.
Were all those red flags in retrospect? Like, is that just like first time not seeing? Like, I would have done the same kind of thing. But like, you think if you did it again, you'd be like, wait a second.
Well, I think, yeah, it was like a sunk cost thing where we'd put in, like, you find this thing and they're like, oh, you need to fill out the application form and pay like a tiny bit of money.
Okay.
You need to pay like a deposit. So we're like, oh, everything on this website sounds good. Yeah, let's put in our application. I think we paid a deposit or something. And then like, another thing comes up. And then instead of just being like, oh, like, fuck this, we're going to do something else. You just like, well, we've already put in the effort. Let's just figure it out.
Yeah, man, they got you, dude.
But we ended up like the Spanish school we went to was like super nice.
Perfect.
I had a really good time, but I think if we should have just booked through them, if we could have found them.
Yeah, I found enough online where it was like this school's good, this school's good, this school's good, but remember, just go and look around. Like enough blogs ended with that where I was like, okay, even though I don't really want to do that, I like you would have rather had like just shown up to the school. So I showed up to a hostel and I booked it for a day and then I walked around. And I think that ended up being, for future reference to anybody, that I think that's the best way to do it, because then you avoid like that first bullshit, with the liaison company,
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think the idea of going there and just figuring it out on your own, like checking out these schools, is a great idea. And they like when you look online, a lot of the schools at least kind of try to pressure you into signing up in advance, like, secure your spot because there's only so many. But in like Latin America in general, it seems like everyone's kind of desperate for. Everyone's
our
always
money.
willing to make an extra buck. They'll jam an extra person in a car, an extra student in a class.
They just know we have money, because our money's worth more. I don't know. I feel like the economic divide of the upper percentages are bigger in our countries than, like, say, Guatemala. Like the upper middle class is huge, at least in the United States. I'm sure in Canada as well. Whereas Guatemala, it doesn't quite exist. It's like the Americas 200 years ago. It's like ultra rich and not ultra rich and ultra poor, but the gap I think is much wider in those Latin American countries between the rich and the poor.
Yeah. So did you end up having a pretty good experience at the language school in Guatemala?
Yeah. So my teacher was really nice. So it was different. What I really liked about it is that it was in a big house that the family lived in, and in the backyard they just had tables and teachers showed up. So it wasn't really like classroom in a room, no sun, with a marker board, blah, blah, blah. We were like outside in the backyard, sit in the grass sometimes, my teacher and she just had a book and she'd assigned some class. Her name was Carmen. She was really nice. I lived with the host family, which was most of the time just plain awkward because I didn't understand anything they were saying to me, and their eating habits were way different than mine. Just that they loved mayonnaise on a lot of things. I don't really like mayonnaise, but I didn't want to offend. Like, a lot of times they just eat pasta and mayonnaise. And they'd pass around the mayonnaise and everybody be slopping along and they'd hand it to me and I'd be like, what's this for? And they're like, we'll put it on the pasta. And I'm like, okay. Like, and I'm like putting on just a little bit and they're all watching to see how much I put on. So it's like, I had a good time with them, but that was hard because I just didn't know. I had never been forced to speak Spanish with anybody. And only now, like 5 months later, do I catch like 40, 35 to 40% of what's being said to me. Still a low percentage, but it's taken like leaps and bounds in the last 6 weeks. So then, I don't know, I felt a little bad for them at the end because I was like a liability sometimes.
So they would actually just like use mayonnaise as pasta sauce?
Yeah, and about as much. It was like, dude, if you, I mean, maybe you did this when you came to Colombia, but if you ever order a hot dog or a hamburger, you need to tell them that you want to put your own condiments on, or that like it'll be a hot dog like this big, and you'll just see condiments on the top, just like rows of condiments, and you're like, is there a burger under there? Is there a hot dog under there? Like, so they love their condiments here, and it's disgusting, I think.
Yeah, it's like that in Chile too. If you go, like they have hot dogs, they call them completos, and they'll just like the top, you can barely even see a bun because there's like ketchup, a ton of mayonnaise, like avocado. And same with burgers, you'll get a burger that's got like an inch thick of mayo on it.
Yeah. So it's definitely an automatic response now after I say hamburguesa or perro, which is a hot dog or that I don't want any condiments, so I'll put them all in. And they're all right there and just chop them on. But yeah, so it was mayonnaise and pasta, and most of the food that was the most strange one. But they were nice. It was just it wasn't quite. Looking back, I had a good time. I think at the time it was a little bit difficult. One, because we just couldn't talk very well. The house was really, really small. I felt bad that I had my own room. I knew like 2 girls had moved out of my room and were sharing a room with their older sister. So it's like Gringo could have a room. There was a weird like vibe there, of like economic. I felt like the like upper class white dude coming in and like, let me have my own room, even though I was paying for everything and they liked that, but. You know what I mean? I had kind of a weird...
So you felt a bit like guilty about it, maybe?
Yeah, definitely a little bit guilty, even though they wouldn't have signed up. I mean, they probably just really need... I mean, on one side you could say they wouldn't have signed up for it if they didn't want to, but on the other side, I know they didn't have very much money, so it's probably just that they could, so they did it, They could make money, so why not? I think that's another big Latin American vibe. Like, if you can make money doing this, do it,
Yeah. Yeah, I've had. It's tough when you are staying somewhere where you don't completely feel comfortable, and like you can't really,
both mentally and physically, because it was a very like small, which again I felt guilty for even like complaining to people about, because it's like it's as big as they can make it, and then they're just as happy as anybody I know, But it was. I'm glad I did it because it was like miles and miles outside of my comfort zone, and it wasn't that bad, So I'm really glad I did it.
And to think about at least the feeling of guilt, like they're significantly better off because you came there and did that, and then they were able to make money, which they can use for, a bunch of other things as well.
Oh, I didn't feel bad for the adults. I felt bad for the 2 little girls whose room I kicked them out of, because to them the food just appears, and because they were too young to work for money or really understand that concept. So I think that like it took me a little while to break into them or her. It's just one girl I kicked out of her room, and I like maybe it wasn't true. Maybe I created it in my head, but I felt like she was like, "Here's this guy who kicked me out of my fucking room. Now I got to share a room with my sister. I don't like this guy. I might not like the person who kicked me out of my room when I was like 11. I don't care about money. So
that's like the facial expression she was giving you. Like you could see it in her eyes.
Just with her eyebrow. Women, dude. And even though she's a girl, she still like has that ability to like make you feel guilty with one look, Like, I'm sorry.
Damn you, gringo.
Yeah, it's where they told me to sleep. I'm sorry. You're gonna have some more money on the side. But and then the social life at the Spanish school was awesome. And that's another reason they were really nice to me. That's the main reason I picked it. But the other reason I went is because life wasn't there yet. There was just like 4 or 5 cool dudes. After I had the house tour, we went out for some beer, and I was just like, if these guys are here, I can be here too. There was like an Italian dude, 2 dudes from the States. When I first showed up, there was 5 students, and everyone spoke really well. And then 4 people left at once, and Fife and some other dudes came along, and all of a sudden I was like the person everyone asked their questions to. It switched in one day. I was like the most stupid to definitely the smartest with Spanish in a day. But
that's a big thing for learning. Like if you feel confident.
It's everything.
It's better to be like the smartest person in the Spanish class than the dumbest, because if you're the smartest, you've got that like confidence level. People ask you questions, you get involved, versus like kind of sitting back doing nothing.
Yeah, because when you're the dumbest in a group, you're like too afraid to speak because everyone speaks better than you. When you're the smartest in the group, you're like never afraid to speak. It's like I can speak better than you jokers, Yeah. It's like So I definitely know. And yeah, I think just with speaking Spanish in general, confidence. Because if you just lose confidence, people, you're not saying it right. People know you're not saying it right. But in fact, whenever I like think about something I need to say, like I'm walking up to somebody and I think about it too long, I mess it up. But I find when I have to say something like that, it's usually okay. Like I'll psych myself out or something like that. But anyway, to answer your question, I had a really good, and the social life was good in Spanish school, and the schooling was good. In Fife, we had a trivia night we went to in Chela. Chile had a couple universities, so it had a good sizable amount of girls. Not that Fife and I talked to any, but the guys who were ahead of me in the previous group, they all had like month-long girlfriends. They had like fucking fished and caught. Because you probably noticed this. We're just very, very, very different here, and I think girls kind of like that. You probably didn't get to pick up on it as much as I did because you traveled with a girlfriend. You probably didn't get to pick up on that at all. But as a single guy here, I've had. I'm on my two girlfriends since January. I'm dating a nice girl named Sonia now, and I don't know, girls. It's kind of refreshing for your self-esteem to be here because, like, I don't know. I feel like in the States, I'm like somewhere in the middle. Like my sense of humor lures girls in, and the girls are never like chasing me. It doesn't really. I don't know who that happens to, but it's not me. But here in Latin America, I find women are like, "Oh, who's this guy? Oh, he speaks a little bit of Spanish," and I don't know. It's like a popular vibe. Yeah, I don't mean to sound super shallow, but I've never been popular before, No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it is fun. I guess we jump from school to girls. We can jump back to school.
But so if someone was looking to go to Central America and like wanted to start their trip with like a language learning experience, would you recommend Shayla? Or what was the actual name of that town again?
It was Quetzaltenango, which is like it sounds, but you have to be able to understand the Spanish letters. If it's Chela, it's Xela. And if you just put that in, Quetzaltenango will come right up. I would really recommend Guatemala as a place to start. I think they speak really like even-keeled, not a ton of slang, slow-ish Spanish compared to other countries. By the way, every country thinks they speak the best Spanish. It's a consistent joke that just hasn't stopped being funny. But people from Bogota are like, Bogotanians speak the best Spanish in Latin America. People from Nicaragua, Honduras, every country, like, we speak it the best here.
It's the same, like Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia. Everywhere except for Buenos Aires, like Argentina, they're like, oh, yeah, I don't learn here. Like, we speak funny.
Well, they use vosotros there, right?
Yeah.
It's vosotros?
It's just vos, which is like a different two. So instead of two, they use vos, it's like really easy to change.
I thought it was like the formal them.
So that's what vosotros is, and then that's not really what they use in.
Oh.
So it's like Uruguay, Buenos Aires, like that kind of neighborhood. It's just like vos, which I would have assumed was like vos. Vosotros is just like them shortening the word, but it's actually it's like a U informal.
Two. Okay.
Yeah, it basically replaces two, but it's actually pretty easy to figure out the conjugation for, because instead of like tú tienes, they say tú tenés. So it's just
one quick second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure.
¿Qué más? Okay, my bad. I was like, so we have a cleaning lady come, which is like a common here, and she was like sitting right there since we started the interview and like sort of looking at me, but she's kind of on her phone. Anyway, this whole time she's been waiting for me to pay her, and I didn't know that.
Oh shit! For like an hour now.
No, I guess we've been talking for an hour, but she's been at least 30 minutes. She's been sitting right over there, and I was like, doesn't she have somewhere to be? I mean, it wasn't bugging me that she was here, but I was just like, I wonder why she's just chilling here. And then she like gave me this look. Anyway, you can. I don't know if you hopefully you stopped recording, but so you can keep.
I just like kept it on. I can cut it out after. Super easy.
Really easily. You got to hear a little bit of my Spanish there.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's better than my Spanish, that's for sure.
Just because I use it a lot, But yeah, so to jump back what we talking about, I would really recommend people going to Guatemala because if you're a traveler, you're probably poor, and Guatemala is the schools were much cheaper there than they were in Mexico. I bet Nicaragua would be pretty cheap as well. And then Costa Rica is even more expensive than the States. I would definitely avoid taking school there. I would avoid going there, to be honest, but I'm sure people would say damn you at that suggestion because they like Costa Rica. But I think they have a really like even-keeled Spanish there, if that makes sense.
So where else did you go in Central America?
So maybe 5 or 6 cities in Mexico. and then Guatemala. Then Fife and I and these two other dudes. I don't know. I just hadn't heard like a lot of people travel north, so you kind of hear. Like I don't really do a lot of research. I kind of just talk to people and they tell me what to do or tell me cool things to do. But no one was really talking about Honduras or El Salvador, and I kind of knew they were like dangerous-ish countries, which I don't like saying about a whole country because that's a little naive. But in the end, they were busing straight through and going to Costa Rica. So going straight to Nicaragua. So I went with them. I have stamps on my passport for those countries, but we were there we just bussed through overnight in the worst 24-hour bus ride of my life from Guatemala City to Managua, which is the capital of Nicaragua. Then I was in Costa Rica, Panama, and then I took a boat from Panama to Colombia. And so that's everywhere.
Okay.
Just down the main land bridge kind of right there. And I only missed Belize, which is kind of out of the way for where I was, although I sort of wanted to go, but only to like check it off. Not that they speak English there. And so I thought it would be, I don't know, not boring, but I just wanted to keep with the Spanish thing, It was just way out of my way when because I don't know if you know what it is, but it's sort of like on the northern tip of Guatemala on the Caribbean side. This is kind of boring, but I didn't go to Belize City, so every country along that land bridge besides Belize.
So if you were to do it again, or like I'm thinking about going to Central America, where would you what kind of route would you recommend to yourself if you were doing it again?
Probably the same one that I did, because a lot of other people go to Cancun first, which is over on the Yucatan, and then come that way. And if people do that, they generally hit up Belize, because Belize is right along that Caribbean coast. But I went the Mexico City route, and so I came from sort of the western edge. I would recommend the same. I might do it differently because I've already done this, but I wouldn't do it differently because I didn't like how anything worked out. I really liked the Mexico City. Then I went to Oaxaca, San Cristobal. Then I crossed the border, Chela, Guatemala City, then Managua. I don't know. I had a really good time. I know that's totally circumstantial, but starting in Mexico City is pretty easy to get around, and I think it's touristy enough to where you're not going to be like really, really weird in the sense that you won't attract a lot of attention. People are used to helping people like you and I out. I think it's a really good first city. Plus, there's just tons of couch surfing there,
And then for anyone listening, I'll definitely have links to Hunter's blog in the show notes and in the description for this podcast, so you can go on there and read through. You've got a pretty good recap of everywhere you've been, right? Yeah.
I try and keep up with that in the hopes of it'll help me with some writing job when I get back. It's kind of and I just kind of like projects like this. It's always cool to have something that like you don't do for any money, just do for fun, just to like let some steam off,
Yeah, and it's a cool thing to have like in the future if you like look back on it and like.
Yeah, for posterity, exactly.
Like time capsule.
Yeah.
So what would you say your like 3 favorite places are in Central America? Cities?
Cities? Well, people ask me this question a lot actually, and I usually preface it with that I'm less of a places person, more of a people person, which sounds gross now that I say it out loud. Like, I'm a people person. But I really like meeting like new people. So I think when I go, that's why I really like couch surfing. So sometimes in a sense, I don't really care where I go because I know I'll just meet cool people. So anyway, my favorite cities might not have anything to do with what people like.
Just like
it's
the
in
experience,
Mexico. But... Yeah. So Mexico City and Lake Atitlan, which is a big lake in Guatemala, which is surrounded by 3 volcanoes, 2 of which are active. You see and it's just like the road around it is kind of dangerous. So you're supposed to not take cars. So my point is you just take boats across this big island to all these little pueblos you can stay in that have hostels and couch surfing hosts and big markets. Every day you get on 1 or 2 because every town offers something a little different. And Fife and I were hanging out there. And that's been a favorite place. And then maybe here in Bogota. But I'd say it has way more to do with like what I was doing with the people that I knew than like stuff that I actually did there. If that makes sense.
No, I'm exactly the same way. Like,
oh, okay.
A lot of traveling for me is just like not being at home. It's like you're somewhere else new, and then if you can get into a situation where you feel comfortable and are having some cool experiences, meet some cool people. I definitely tend to like smaller cities a bit better than big cities, but yeah, it's not. I definitely can understand with like the not really caring too much about, what the cathedral's like or what the tour is like.
And it just gets old quick. Like I need like a year break before I go to another set of ruins. I've been to so many ruins and I feel so uncouth talking about how boring they are. But The museums I'm just not into anymore. You just get over like doing stuff like quickly. You know, if when you traveled around South America, did you guys do like hostel jumps? Where you did Spanish school for a little while, and then like hostel jumps as the rest?
Mostly hostels, yeah. We did like an Airbnb at one point, a homestay during our language school, but yeah, other than that, just hostels the entire time.
Yeah, so maybe you can sympathize a little bit with like this shit to do in a city. Just it's kind of all the same after a little while, you know?
Yeah, especially
if you like do them too quickly, one after the other.
Yeah, I found in South America, at least, when you get to a city and there's like the to-do list, it's like, you know, check out our ancient colonial district. Which is like every single city has one of those kind of. And then like maybe there's a cathedral and perhaps some sort of museum.
Don't forget, there's always the Gold Museum, you know, and then an Indigenous Culture Museum.
We went to the Gold Museum in Bogota. It's pretty cool. The fact that everything's gold, but
I've been as well. I liked it, Museo de Oro. But yeah, every tons of cities have one. It's kind of a little Latin American thing, a little, you know, gold, kind of big, and like looking good culture, if you know what I mean. It's like big here in Colombia. Everybody has to look a certain, you know, gold's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like sexy for these people, you know?
Yeah. So where, if you were to pick a place in Central America where you were going to like settle down for 3 to 6 months, and stay, where would that be? And I'm asking because I'm actually thinking about doing that. In
Central or South or either?
Central. And like, so maybe between like a pretty cheap place, like in Guatemala or Nicaragua.
Nicaragua, I was in a real like phase of hostels and drinking and having fun, which Fife can recap for you. We had a great time. So I don't really know much about, I feel bad, but I don't know much about Nicaraguan like culture or like real life. We did like 6 weeks of like partying and had a great time. So I don't know much about Nicaragua. So Chile I stayed a while in. We took a whole week of Spanish class with room and board for $172, which now is like nothing compared to the prices you pay for only school here. So that's everything, including room and board. So I think you could spend your money really well there. And then I don't know how expensive Mexico City is. It just depends if you worked a stage job or you didn't. Because not a stage job. If you worked a job from your country, you could live anywhere besides Costa Rica and have a good time. Like here in Bogota, I'm having a good time. But I would say just the cities DF and Chela would be good cities to. Especially Chela, I know well because I like lived in a house there. Whereas DF is kind of a fantasy land of couch surfers and like, I don't know, smoking weed and cooking meals. It wasn't wasn't quite real living. Like, but Chela, I'd look into Chela and you know, you got another friend you can ask about that, but walk everywhere. And you're not only supposed to walk places at night, but at least 5 times we came over trivia night, just like screaming and drunk at like 3 a.m., like doing everything you're not supposed to do, you know? I don't know. Nothing ever happened. Not that nothing could happen. I mean, if you go there and you get robbed when you're drunk, sorry. That my story made it seem good, but I don't know. I don't think that city was very unsafe and like touristy enough where you can find things that you like from back home if need be. I don't know. I had a good time in Chela. So to give you some if you're looking, I would say
check out Chela.
Yeah. But that's the only city that I can really like give someone a good like, okay, go live there because I lived there. Medellin, South America, I would love to live.
Yeah,
I kind of wish I'd pick Medellin over Bogota now that I've done it all.
Yeah.
Like more opportunities here, more people to meet, but Medellin is like great weather, killer transportation, like, and they're the top women of Colombia, who already is known for their pretty women. You know that the peak women come from the Países are their nicknames.
And it's the plastic surgery capital of South America as well.
I think of the world sometimes it gets referenced.
It's funny that you mentioned that because that was actually one of my questions. I wasn't actually going to ask it, but I was like, it's like Medellin is the place I want to live. Why don't you live there?
I mean, like I said, if I could go back, I might do it. But I have a friend from University of Florida who is already living in Bogota. And so he kind of sealed that decision because I feel like when you have someone, like a friend who's lived somewhere for a couple of years, it just amps up your social life right away. You just follow them around.
Yeah.
for a while, and he introduced me to Camilo, and I would have never found this place otherwise. So I kind of knew. I think I knew before we came to Colombia, in like the way back in my mind, that if Bogota is at all cool, which it is, I'll probably stay there because my good friend Anthony is already there. You know, he can kind of give me advice about this and that and what have you.
So once you got to Cartagena, is that where you started in Colombia?
Yeah, Cartagena.
What was it like? So you traveled around Colombia a bit. Where all did you go before settling in Bogota?
So we took a boat from Cologne, Panama, a 24-hour. It was like it looked like a cruise ship from the outside. It was huge, but really it was just like a moving people boat kind of thing. It was like seats everywhere. People had nicer cabins, and a couple floors were for cars only. So we got into Cartagena, which really like super touristy. And if you're a guy walking around by yourself or with other guys, people just assume you're there for drugs or women. So you get hit up. I'm not joking, man. Like once a minute, people are like, "Hey, what are you looking for, man?" And you're like, "Nothing. Leave me alone." I'm just like yeah. So I guess the sex tourism and the drug tourism. I don't think that's the right word. Recreational drugs. Like I guess that's a big reason to go to Cartagena for people. You know, it's right on the coast. It's close to Florida. You know, you wanted to like sleep with some Colombian girl and do some good Colombian coke. Cartagena might be your place to go.
Or if you're in the Secret Service.
Yeah.
Did you hear that story?
So we started it. Oh, no. I don't know. Explain that. I didn't get that.
Oh, like, I guess, I didn't know it was the precedent there, but a whole bunch of U.S. Secret Service people got in trouble for hitting up a brothel in Cartagena when they were there.
Yeah,
and then like, they didn't pay or something. And like some other stuff happened.
I do remember that. I didn't know it was in Cartagena. I remember that like story paired with Latin America, but I don't remember. That's funny that it was Cartagena. I wish I had known that when I was there.
Sorry, man. Anyways, continue.
So we were there for like a week, and by this point, I've left Fife. I guess I should stop talking about Fife because people outside the podcast don't know who Fife is. Fife's a nice guy.
Yeah, so Fife is our mutual friend to how we connected. I was going to put it in the intro, so... You've probably already heard of it if you've listened to it.
Oh, so I every time I said it in my head, I was like, name it. It's so pertinent to the story. I went to Salento after that, so there's a coffee triangle here, which is like a triangle of 3 big cities, and the coffee region is in between. And ironically so, it's hard to find a good cup of coffee here because I think that Colombians know how to grow it, but they never really drink it because you can just sell it for more. So it's generally hard to find brewed good coffee here.
It's just like all Nescafe, hey?
Yeah, people. You go to like a breakfast place and you see someone making you some instant coffee, and it's like, come on, like you own a business here. We're in Colombia, instant coffee, but I don't know, just part of like they're not coffee snobs like Americans are, and then I'm sure a handful of Canadians are also coffee snobs. So we were in the coffee triangle for a little while. That's Salento, Pereira, Manizales is over there. Then we were in Medellin for the New Year and Christmas. That's the first Christmas I spent away from my family, and I highly recommend everybody do that at least once or twice. Spend Christmas away from your family, and it's a different Christmas. We had like a barbecue at the hostel and got really drunk that night and had a good time. And it wasn't like, I got this for you, like the same shit I've been doing for 30 years. And then Medellin for a while, which was awesome. Then Cali, and then I was here maybe like January 21st, maybe like a month in Colombia outside of Bogota.
And then, so when you got to Bogota, decided you wanted to live there, what was it like trying to find a place to live?
It was shitty, to be honest, at first. So you walk around and you see like these signs in the windows that says "Se arrienda," which means arrir is to rent. I think that's how you say it. And so "se arrienda," the "se," I don't know if you know what that is already, but it's like it can be done. "Se habla español," it's like an impersonal pronoun.
Isn't it kind of like one? Like
one can. There you go.
Yes, you say how does one say?
How is it said? But it doesn't have like whatever. You get it. But you look for those signs in the window. And then we don't have phones, but if you recall in Bogota, a lot of people sell, minutos. 100 pesos por minuto, 200 pesos por. They have little cheap ass cell phones that they just give you. Phone ringing. I don't want to answer it. And so you write down the numbers. The places look cool, and you call them up. And for a week, I made super fruitless phone calls Spanish, I can face to face. You speak slow, we can talk for a while. But like over the phone or over a PA at a concert, I just understand nothing. Something happens. I don't know. I've heard it's the same way with people trying to learn English. Like over the phone, it's much harder. And so I call these people up, and you try and just frame a question to where someone has to say yes or no. You try and frame it to where no explanation is needed, because that's how I get information out of someone who speaks a different language. Like, yes. So they're telling me about this. They're telling me all about this place, and I'm like, but is the room up for rent? And they don't answer the question, but is the room up for rent? I'm like, oh no, never mind. It's not up for rent anymore. I'm like, okay, thank you. When can we meet? And they keep talking. And I say again, when can we meet? And they're probably like, okay, I can meet right now. Like I just need. So it was hard. Calling places never really worked out. People just don't take signs down. Like, oh yeah, we rented that out a month ago. Internet is such old, like littered with old ads. So for like a week and a half, I was like, what the fuck am I gonna do? I can't find a place. I'm spending money at this hostel that I don't want to spend because hostel's like $15 a day, whereas this place is like $4 a day. So it's just cheaper when you pay more money with anything. And then my friend Anthony was like, hey, I got a friend Camilo who's got some rooms open. I'll introduce you guys. And I gave him money the next day. He seemed nice. The place has like wood floors. We got a hammock inside. I haven't lived in a yeah, man, I haven't lived in a place this nice since I moved into my parents' house 11 years ago.
And how much does it cost, if you don't mind to say?
I don't mind. It's 440 mil. I just wanted to say it in Spanish. So that's 480,000 pesos, which comes out to like $218 a month. And then maybe after the interview, I can walk the laptop around and give you a tour if you want. But there's 4 rooms here. I have no idea. I imagine the square footage is like 12,000 feet. I mean, 1,200 feet, 1,200 square feet, 1,300 square feet. I don't know if those numbers mean anything to you. I'm kind of making it up, but it's a sizable place.
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. I think it's like, for rent here at Banff, we pay like $650 each Canadian dollars, which is unfortunately worth substantially less than the US dollar now. But for something significantly smaller than that.
Yeah, I mean, the case would be in any city I've ever lived in. And especially where this place is, it's because, like I said, I go to places 50 blocks north of here, 50 blocks south. It's a really good, I think, for a place like this nice in Austin, for as close as it was to things that you want to be close to, you could definitely pay like $800,
Yeah.
Easily.
So if someone was looking to move to Bogota or a city in Colombia, like how would you recommend they go about doing that, since you kind of ended up finding your place through like a friend, or not a friend, but like an acquaintance?
Through knowing somebody. I mean, so my other friend, so I met a dude in Medellin named Eli, and he actually stayed in the city. He went back to the States like 2 weeks ago. He had some downtime between jobs and wanted to take Spanish school. And I was like, hey, I'm going to Bogota, and I think we just kind of stuck together. And when it came time to sign on this place, he wanted to wait. I think he just wanted to do his own thing, and that probably ended up being a good idea, so we could have separate places and still hang out. And he found a place like a week later, and his Spanish is much worse than mine. So here in Bogota, if I had stuck with it, I would have eventually found a place. It might not have been as good as this place. It probably wouldn't have been. And the best part of knowing somebody is you know that you can trust this guy. But I mean, I guess just keep calling those signs if you went to a country. Here in Bogota, it's like a very advanced city, but people still aren't as big on the internet as we may be. So like I said, a lot of ads would be like months and months old, and no one just thought to take them down, to upload them. I mean, to update them. So in Bogota, I didn't have good experience looking online. And I imagine if I didn't have good experience looking online here, it's going to be much worse in smaller cities, where people it's a pretty technological city, but people still aren't really all that into using the internet, or I don't know, just lots of ads were outdated, which I had never experienced in the States looking for places. So I gave up on the online thing pretty quickly.
So yeah, just got to be persistent, got to keep looking around in the place you want to live and looking for signs, pretty much.
Or just meet somebody that like you can talk to, like Anthony speaks English. Meet somebody who you can talk to who like has. I still think meeting people is the best way to get anything done, especially in this way. Because then, let's say you just meet a nice guy at an expat bar. He's been living there for a couple of years. Chat him up, or maybe that's hard to set up, but I still think meeting people or knowing somebody is the best way to find like a good situation.
And even if you're staying at a hostel, like the people who work at the hostel live there, so they may not live at the hostel. Like if they're living around town, like they probably know some people. So
Yeah, usually, unfortunately, people who work at the hostel aren't going to speak any English, which is why they have all the European slash North Americans volunteering at the front. So that might work for you, but might not as much as you think, because generally they have like volunteers because no one else speaks English.
Yeah,
and like all the staff is there, but just speaks, but doesn't speak any English. But yeah, I mean, asking people in your hostel. Sometimes people have been at the hostel for a while. I guess just stick with it because it's probably going to take like. You're probably not going to get it done before you go, which is what everybody wants to do. Plus, you just want to see a place like the school. You know, you want to like meet the person you're giving money to. So I guess I would recommend that people go there first, even though that's the more scary option, and just look around for like, be ready to look around for like 20 days, and then you probably find something cool. Plus, we see like Bogota, it's massive. It's hard to know where you want to live before you come. You know, if you live in the wrong area, it could be a rough deal.
Yeah. So what's it like living in Bogota? And what was the knife incident?
The knife
that
incident.
Everyone's been like waiting for.
It's like super not exciting, but let me preface with that. So I guess have you been to Chicago before to start this?
No, I never have.
Chicago's like Bogota in the sense it's just like old, big, dirty, and like super rich and super poor people. Like that's Chicago. Although Bogota is older. Bogota was founded in like 1514. Bogota is like, by standards of my country, yours as well, it's like very, very, very old, you know? Like someone could have sailed with Columbus and then hopped down and founded Bogota all in one lifetime, you know? But, so it's like Chicago in that way. And my point with that is like there's really, really nice pockets. Most pockets are okay, but then some really, really shady pockets. So my street is called Caracas, which is the capital of Venezuela, but also named my street. And at night it gets really empty, which is a sign that it's just like gets kind of rough at night. And so we were walking home from a language exchange when Eli and I first came. And first off, some local people were like, you shouldn't be walking in your neighborhood that late at night. But we didn't listen because we were stupid. So it was like 11:30 and we were walking back to the language exchange on this road that's busy, that's like normally really busy and really wide, but totally abandoned. So like not like an easy place to rob somebody if you wanted to, you know, like it's just businesses and everything's closed. So like it's just dark streets for 15 blocks in a row. And so they had a soccer game that night, and I've heard a lot about soccer since I came, but like a lot of the times days when they ban drinking, they call it a ley seca. A ley is law, and seca is dry, and they correspond them on big soccer game days. And you can still buy beer, but you can't drink beer at locations, and they do that, I hear, to curb behavior because people get wild with the soccer. People get really like passionate about their team. So we're walking home that night, and these dudes, I didn't know that they were part of a soccer team at the time. I found it afterwards. They're all wearing red. And they like sidle up and they're walking next to us. And he's kind of talking to me. And I'm kind of ignoring him. Usually ignore people, leave alone. But then his other friend comes up next to me and starts to walk like behind me and close to me. And right then I'm like, this isn't good. So I'm like, hey, let's cross the street. And I go to cross the street and I look over and this guy's already got Eli like grabbed right here. He's got this little like switchblade in his hand. And he's kind of like angrily waving it. So we like knock that dude's hand away. We run to the middle of the road, and another guy is waiting for us. It does the same thing to Eli. I try to give this guy my wallet, but he doesn't want it. They just like wanted to mess with us because he like was looking at my wallet and then was like waving the knife around. He was insane too. He had to have been on drugs. I mean, he was just like screaming and so we hit his arm a couple times. We think we're fine. We run away. They chase us for like a block. We come into some cops, and the guys start running the other way, and the cops like, I don't know, didn't really care. I was like, there they go. And they're like, oh, tranquilo. I was like, okay, well, never mind. I'm just going to walk home now. And, but then we noticed that Eli had like a cut on his arm. And it wasn't anything bad. It was like this wide, but I think it was kind of deep because it was bleeding a lot. We went home and he bandaged himself up. That's sort of the end of the story. Like I told you, not super exciting, but it was like, whoa, that just happened. Like, obviously I've never been in my whole life like somebody like, hey, I got this knife and we found out from those cops right afterwards that like that's common. They're called barrias bravas, which are like Spanish for like a soccer thug, you know? Like they're wearing their team. So
they didn't take your wallet when you offered it to them.
I think like the first group who was a little calmer, the friend like went out to the middle and was like flanking us like groups of wolves, like, you know, when they're like chasing a rabbit, like some of them come off to the side. It's called flanking. Yeah. So he did that to us, but the initial group seemed more chill. In fact, there was one dude who was messing with us who I was undoubtedly egging the whole group on because we saw them on a porch when we walked by, and all of a sudden they were behind us. They were probably just like drunk as hell on the porch. Like, here walk by two gringos. Let's go see if they'll fight us. Like, let's go see if we can give them an excuse to like mess with us, you know? And maybe one of those dudes in the group would have like snatched on a wall. They seemed kind of calm, but the dude in the middle of the road, he was just like screaming a lot. I don't know what he was saying. He had him by the cuff like this, and we were trying to hit his arm away, and he was kind of swinging this knife, and he was kind of drunk. So we were just kind of like, I think when we like turned to run away, he like clipped my friend Eli's arm. Sober and like adrenaline rushing. We're just like, what the fuck is this dude? But no, that second dude, I had out my wallet, and I was like, okay, I'll take my wallet and I'll leave it alone. This is what you're supposed to do. And he just kind of looked at it and then swiped again at Eli, and he definitely saw it. That there was like 1 second where he was like, that's a wallet. I don't want that wallet. Like, I just think they wanted to mess with us. It's like a pride thing, you know, like young, stupid people, you know, like you're in your 20s and you're drunk. It's like, you know, let's flip this VW Beetle, or like, let's go mess with these gringos, or I don't know. You just have like fucking stupid ideas, you know?
Yeah.
It was probably just that. So it wasn't really like a big deal. Although I try not to tell people because I feel like everyone's always afraid of Colombia, and it's going to be like, oh, see, you had one incident that happened in Colombia, told you. And it's like, well, it did happen here, unfortunately. So it's good to talk about it here. This is a travel blog, but I think in the future, people will ask what happened in Colombia, and I won't. First off, who cares? My friend got a cut. He doesn't think about it anymore. He's fine. But I just feel like it'll contribute to like already existing negative stereotypes about Colombia, so I probably won't talk about it much, to be honest.
Yeah, there are a lot of negative stereotypes about Colombia, but it seems like people, everyone I've met traveling, everyone I did meet traveling South America who had been to Colombia had an awesome time there, and it was almost because there was those kind of like negative expectations, and it just like blows everyone away how nice it actually is.
Yeah,
and how friendly everyone is, other than if they're trying to like knife your friend. But
yeah. I mean, I think like somehow, Medellin is like super, super nice. Somehow they used to be like the murder capital of the world, like 15 years ago in Pablo Escobar's days. And I think like those kind of rumors trickle down like a half a generation, and that's just what people think now. It's like just drugs and like gangs and what have you. Sorry, it's so dark now, but I suppose the audio is just what matters. But I just think Colombia's trying to get rid of those stereotypes, which linger from like maybe more violent days. But yeah, Medellin is like San Diego. If you've ever been there, it's like really nice, clean, money's there, great transportation. I mean, yeah, I would live there anytime. It was really, really nice. And the women were just like, all day you're just like, that's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. And you're like, no, that's it. It's like, no, that's it. All day. It's just like it keeps getting better. So the women there are very, and I didn't really see the plastic surgery as much as I thought. It's definitely there. And I feel like the women are maybe a little more into their looks than like you and I might prefer. But I mean, there's like 9s and 10s just like walking around all day. Not like back home, you know?
Yeah, we did language lessons with a woman there, and she was telling us about how like you go in for plastics, like so many people do it there, and you can go, they have like combo deals, so you can go get like a nose job, like boob job combo, and it's like, I don't know, like $1,000 or something. And she's like, yeah, I did it. And she's like, everyone I know has done it. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess if everybody, I've seen some like really weird looking butt implants where it's just like this tiny little girl and this huge butt. It just looks so weird. And I feel like, well, first off, I don't think anybody should ever go into unnecessary surgery, but if you want to do that, that's fine. But it should be like a subtle change. It shouldn't be like whoa, you got a boob job. Like I think this is definitely not the point of this podcast, but the butt implant just looks so weird. Like I can't imagine why that would be desirable. You know, it just looks so like, it looked like a joke, you know?
Yeah. I guess
like a Photoshop joke on the internet.
But maybe like more of their culture where they like attract more attention with the butt versus actually looking nice.
Yeah. And I mean, my favorite part about Medellin was that it's very looks oriented. Like I said, lots of beautiful people, nice clothes. But then you'll see men around with like mullets, fanny packs, and like rollerblades, and they're like straight, like not ironic adult men who are like self-respecting and like doing these things that like we would like you get a mullet because you lost a bet, or like, you know, you're in rollerblades. or you're trying to make a joke. You're in rollerblades because you're at like a '90s party, but here those things like those don't have those stereotypes. So you see like this like beautiful woman with this guy with like a mullet and a fanny pack, and it's like not ironic at all, you know?
So have you worn rollerblades to a '90s party before?
No, right as I said that, I was like, that sounded weird to say.
I feel like it'd be a tough thing to have at a party. You'd just be like rolling around.
Yeah, after I said it, I was like, I wonder if he's going to bring that up afterwards. And sure enough, he did. Yeah. I'm on my way to a '90s party, so I'm going to put on my rollerblades. I kind of wanted to put on a pair of rollerblades that I came here. I haven't, like any self-respecting adult from my country, I haven't put any on since the '90s. I kind of like to get into another pair, you know?
Yeah, that's one thing I just remember now about being in South America. A lot more people rollerblading than I'm like, what's going on here? Like, people actually still rollerblade.
I know. I mean, that fad died quick, you know, in the States, and I imagine in Canada, like, it caught on, people were into it, and then it's just like, you don't do that anymore. And like, you know, it's so funny, something so cool was so uncool just years later, you know?
Yeah. So what would you say your favorite parts are about Bogota, or like when you leave that you think you'll probably miss?
Well, oddly enough, we always mention that we're going to miss the juice here. So with every like local lunch, which is usually in the range of like 6,000 to 8,000 pesos, which is like $2 or $3, and 1,000 is a meal, which is like super confusing. They have really good like fresh squeezed juice and lots of different fruits, guanabana, mangosteen, granadilla, aranya, like lots of fruits that I'd never seen in my life, and they're always really, really good, really, really fresh. So that's something kind of odd that I think I might miss if I don't. They didn't have really good juice in other parts of Central America, so weirdly enough, I'll miss the juice the most because it's really, you get as much of it as you want, and just like really puts every other juice I've had to shame, because you know it was a fruit like this morning, picked from the tree like 3 days ago, so. You know, just smushing it in the thing. So the juice here, people are really into juice here, and I am too.
I remember in Colombia just being shocked by the size of like seeing, you go to the like street vendors for fruit and you see like papayas that are like the size of like small dogs, and like avocados too. Like these avocados are like almost watermelon sized, some of them.
And they're very cheap, you know?
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, Hunter.
Oh yeah, cool, no problem. And trying to get anything more pertinent to say. I don't know. No more questions? I guess we've kind of left my checklist back over there.
Covered it pretty well. And then for anyone listening, if you want to find out more about Hunter's time in Central South America, and also you have your blog with covering all your farming experiences as well, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's hunterstanford.com?
Yeah, just my name, hunterstanford.com. And yeah, I try and update it. I'm trying to make a last few posts about like specific experiences, and I usually just do the recap of what I've been doing. But yeah, it'd be cool if people wanted to check it out and email me about anything, especially questions. I know I emailed like 1,000 people before I took my trip with all stupid questions that didn't really matter. So people, I willingly accept the same.
Cool.
All right, man. Well, it's cool